I didn't know if the 73 cents in my cup holder would get me home, but I kept counting them anyway, like touching them might turn quarters into miracles. I'd been sitting in the parking lot of a gas station in Fairview, Kansas for 20 minutes, watching people fill their tanks and drive away, while my own gas gauge needle hovered just above empty. If you've ever had one of those days where the world seems to keep moving without you, you'll know exactly how I felt. The morning sun beat down on my beat-up Honda, making the interior feel like an oven. I could smell hot asphalt and gasoline fumes mixing with the vanilla air freshener hanging from my rearview mirror, the one my daughter Lily had given me for my birthday last month. The steady ding-ding of the gas pumps played like a soundtrack to my desperation, each chime another reminder of what I couldn't afford. My phone buzzed against the torn upholstery, another text from my ex-husband about being late with Lily's school supplies. I turned it face down on the passenger seat, next to the stack of job rejection letters I'd been carrying around like some kind of twisted good luck charm. 3 months unemployed, 67 applications, 0 callbacks, and now stranded at a gas station 40 miles from home with less than $1 to my name. The thing about hitting rock bottom is that it happens in such ordinary places, not in dramatic thunderstorms or dark alleys, but in the bright sunshine of a Tuesday morning, at a Midwest gas station where happy people buy coffee and lottery tickets while you sit in your car trying not to cry. The mundane cruelty of it all, watching normal life flow around you while you're drowning in plain sight. I was still staring at my quarters, their edges worn smooth from all my nervous handling, when a knock on my window made me jump. When I turned, I saw him, an elderly man framed by the glare of the Kansas sun, leaning on a cane that looked almost as weathered as his face. He wore overalls that had been mended more than once and a John Deere cap that had faded from green to the color of old grass. His eyes, though, they were sharp and kind, the sort that missed nothing. He made a rolling motion with his hand, and I cracked the window. The outside air rushed in, carrying the scent of fresh-cut hay from somewhere beyond the parking lot. "Been sitting here a while," he said. Not a question, just an observation. His voice had that gentle rumble of someone who'd lived long enough to know when not to pry. "Saw you counting that change 3 times now. Honda's making that hungry sound. Tank's near empty, isn't it?" My cheeks burned. I'd thought I was invisible in my misery, but this stranger had been watching, noticing. "Just making a phone call," I lied, gesturing vaguely at my turned-over phone. He nodded slowly, like he was agreeing to participate in my fiction, but his eyes said he knew better. "Hot day for phone calls. That your Honda making that rattling sound earlier? Heard it when you pulled in. Sounds like the heat shield's loose." I hadn't realized my car had been making any sound, but then again, it made so many sounds these days I'd stopped keeping track. "Probably. It's got more problems than I've got money to fix." "Most things do." He shifted his weight, studying me with those sharp eyes. "You know, I've been watching folks at this gas station for near 40 years. Can tell a lot about a person by how they sit in their car. You're sitting like my daughter used to, trying to be invisible but hoping someone sees you anyway." The truth of it hit me like a physical blow. I felt exposed, like he'd peeled back my skin and looked right at my frightened heart. Earl continued, "I'm Earl. Got a farm about 10 minutes up the road. Was supposed to meet my granddaughter here, but she just called. Running late. Nurses, you know, always getting held up at the hospital." I nodded, not sure why he was telling me this, but grateful for the reprieve from his too knowing gaze. "Thing is, I promised I'd bring her lunch. Made her favorite, meatloaf sandwiches and potato salad. Way too much for an old man to eat alone. You hungry?" My stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, the sound audible even over the distant highway noise. I'd skipped dinner last night and breakfast this morning, trying to stretch my last $12 until something changed. Pride fought with hunger for about 3 seconds before hunger won. That's very kind, but..." "Got sweet tea, too." Earl interrupted, already shuffling toward an ancient pickup truck parked nearby. "Made it fresh this morning. Come on, let's sit at that picnic table in the shade. No sense baking in these cars." Before I could protest further, he was pulling a cooler from his truck bed. I found myself following him to a weathered picnic table under a scraggly elm tree behind the gas station. The shade felt like stepping into air conditioning after the heat of my car. Cicadas hummed in the grass, and somewhere a meadowlark called out, the sound almost hopeful. Earl unpacked his cooler with the efficiency of someone who'd been feeding people for decades. Thick sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, a Tupperware container of potato salad that looked like it belonged in a cookbook photo, a mason jar of tea with ice still clinking against the glass like tiny bells. "My wife used to say that food tastes better when it's shared," he said, sliding a sandwich across to me. "Been 5 years since she passed, but I still can't seem to cook for just one." I unwrapped the sandwich with shaking hands and took a bite. The bread was warm and soft, homemade and buttered. The meatloaf was savory with a whisper of brown sugar, the tang of pickle relish cutting through like a bright summer memory. I took a bite, and for the first time in weeks, I stopped feeling like I was in survival mode. After weeks of ramen noodles and peanut butter, it tasted like love made edible. "This is incredible," I said around a mouthful, not caring that I was talking with my mouth full. Earl smiled, the lines around his eyes deepening into well-worn grooves. "Secret's in the brown sugar, just a touch, and kneading the meat gentle-like, not angry." He poured tea into a spare mason jar and handed it to me. The glass was cool and sweating, the tea sweet enough to make my teeth ache in the best way. "So what's got you counting change in a gas station parking lot on a Tuesday morning?" Maybe it was the kindness in his voice, or the fact that he was a stranger I'd never see again, or just the relief of eating real food. But I found myself telling him about the job loss, the divorce, trying to keep it together for Lily, the 73 cents that was supposed to magically turn into enough gas to get home. With each word, I felt smaller and more pathetic, but Earl just kept nodding, making small sounds of understanding that somehow made me feel less alone. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment, looking out at the heat shimmers rising from the parking lot. A semi rumbled by on the highway, its horn echoing across the flat Kansas landscape. "You know what I did the day after my wife died?" he asked finally. "Went to the grocery store, stood in the cereal aisle for 20 minutes because I couldn't remember what kind I liked. She'd been buying the groceries for 43 years. I broke down right there between the Cheerios and the cornflakes. This kid working there couldn't have been more than 16. He just stood with me. Didn't say nothing, just stood there so I wasn't alone with my grief and my cereal." He pulled out a worn wallet, the leather soft as cloth, extracting a photograph. A woman with silver hair and Earl's same kind eyes smiled out at me. "That's my Margaret." Know what she would have said about crying in the cereal aisle? She'd have said, "Earl, sometimes you just got to water the Cheerios. Tears got to go somewhere." Despite everything, I found myself smiling. "She sounds wonderful." She was. He tucked the photo back carefully, like he was tucking her into bed. "Point is, we all get knocked down. The measure isn't in how we fall, it's in who helps us back up. Margaret helped me up every day for 43 years. Now I try to pay that forward when I can." I'd thought kindness was for people who had extra to give. Earl was teaching me it was for people who understood what it meant to have nothing. A blue SUV pulled into the parking lot, tires crunching on gravel, and a young woman in scrubs climbed out, waving at Earl. "That's my granddaughter," he said, starting to pack up the cooler. "Tell you what, why don't you take the rest of this food? I'll just make more for tomorrow." "Oh, I couldn't." "Sure you could." He was already transferring containers into a plastic grocery bag, his movements decisive. And while you're at it, why don't you follow me up to the farm? Got some work needs doing if you're interested. Nothing fancy, helping me organize Margaret's things. Been putting it off, but my kids say it's time. Could use someone with a gentle touch." I stared at him. "You don't even know me." "Know enough," Earl said simply. "Know you're a mom trying to do right by her daughter. Know you're proud enough to sit in a hot car rather than ask for help. Know you appreciate good meatloaf and don't waste food even when you're starving. Rest we can figure out as we go." My throat felt tight. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll follow me to the farm. Got a gas can in my truck. We'll put enough in your tank to get you there and back home after." He stood, joints popping like kindling. "Sometimes the universe sends us what we need in the strangest packages. Margaret used to say I was like an old book with a torn cover. Got to open it up to see the good parts." His granddaughter reached us, giving Earl a hug before looking at me curiously. "Who's your friend, Grandpa?" "This is..." He paused, realizing we'd never exchanged names. "Sarah," I supplied. "Sarah Mitchell." "Sarah is going to help me with that project we discussed," Earl told his granddaughter. "The one with Mom's things." Understanding dawned on her face, followed by a warm smile. "Oh, that's wonderful. Grandpa's been needing help with that. I'm Amy, by the way. I'd love to help too, but my shifts have been crazy." "Speaking of which, I can't stay," Amy said apologetically. "Just wanted to bring you your medicine." She handed Earl a pharmacy bag, then surprised me by pressing something into my hand. "For helping Grandpa. He won't admit it, but this is hard for him." After she drove away, I looked at what she'd given me, a $50 bill. "I can't..." "Sure you can," Earl said, echoing his earlier words. "Amy's good people. Gets that from her grandmother. Now let's get some gas in that Honda." I watched him walk to his truck. This stranger who'd seen through my lie about phone calls, who'd noticed the specific sound of an empty tank, who'd watched me count my pathetic coins and decided to act. The gas can sloshed as he carried it back, the sound like possibility. 20 minutes later, I was following Earl's pickup down a country road lined with cornfields. The stalks whispered secrets to each other as we passed. My tank had enough gas to get home now, plus the $50 from Amy. But something made me keep following those taillights. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the promise of paid work. Or maybe it was just the kindness of a stranger on a terrible Tuesday. Earl's farmhouse was like something from a storybook. White clapboard with a wraparound porch, flower boxes under every window spilling over with petunias and marigolds. Wind chimes sang softly in the breeze, their melody mixing with the buzz of bees in the garden. A tabby cat watched us from the porch swing, tail twitching with feline judgment. "That's Hemingway," Earl said, climbing out of his truck. "Margaret named him. Said he had a writer's soul, always sitting and observing." Inside, the house smelled like lemon furniture polish and something floral, maybe lavender sachets tucked in drawers. The floorboards creaked a welcome under our feet. Family photos covered every surface, showing the evolution of Earl and Margaret's life together. Wedding photos from the 1950s, children, grandchildren, holiday gatherings spanning decades. A whole life lived in love, documented in Kodachrome and digital prints. Earl led me to a sunny room at the back of the house. The late afternoon light filtered through lace curtains, making patterns on the floor. Cedar chest, dresser, closet, all filled with carefully preserved clothes, jewelry boxes, photo albums. "The kids each took something already," he said softly. "But there's so much left. They say I should donate it, but I need someone to help me do it right. Make sure everything goes where it'll be appreciated." We worked through the afternoon, Earl sharing stories with each item we packed. The rustle of tissue paper and the soft thud of boxes being filled became our rhythm. The dress Margaret wore to their daughter's wedding, navy blue with tiny pearl buttons. The quilt she made for their first grandchild, each square a different farm scene. The collection of scarves she bought on their anniversary trips, one from each year, some gaudy, some elegant, all loved. 30 years we went to Branson, he chuckled. holding up a particularly bright sequined scarf that caught the light like a disco ball. Margaret loved those shows. Couldn't carry a tune in a bucket, but she'd sing along anyway. Said life was too short to be embarrassed about joy. As we worked, Earl asked about Lily, about my plans, about what kind of job I was looking for. When I mentioned I'd been in customer service, he got thoughtful, pausing with a jewelry box in his hands. You know, my neighbor Ruth runs a dental office in town. Mentioned last week she was looking for a new receptionist. Want me to call her? For a second, I just stared at him. No one had spoken my name and job interview in the same sentence for months. The possibility of it made my chest tight with something that might have been hope. You've already done so much. Nonsense. Phone call doesn't cost me anything. He was already pulling out his cell phone, squinting at it through reading glasses he'd produced from his shirt pocket. Amy programmed Ruth's number in here somewhere. By the time we'd finished packing Margaret's clothes, everything sorted and labeled for different charities, Earl had not only called Ruth, but set up an interview for me the next morning. The late afternoon sun slanted through the windows, painting golden squares on the hardwood floor. Dust motes danced in the light like tiny celebrations. I should go, I said, looking at the time. Need to pick up Lily from after-school care. Earl nodded, pressing an envelope into my hands. For today's work, same rate I pay the neighbor kid to help with farm chores. I opened it to find $150. Earl, this is too much for a few hours. It's what the work was worth to me, he said firmly. Having company, sharing Margaret's stories, getting this done, that's worth more than money. This is just a token. As he walked me to my car, our footsteps crunching on the gravel drive, Earl stopped suddenly. Almost forgot. He hurried back to the house, returning with a paper bag that smelled like summer. Leftovers from lunch, plus some things from the garden. Tomatoes are coming in real nice this year. The bag was heavy with fresh vegetables, the leftover meatloaf and potato salad, and what looked like an entire apple pie, its crust golden and perfect. Earl, Margaret always said the two best things you could give someone were a full belly and a second chance. You gave me the second today. Let me handle the first. I drove home in a daze, my gas tank full, money in my wallet, tomorrow's lunch packed, and an interview scheduled. The 73 cents still sat in my cup holder, but now they looked different. Not like desperation, but like the last thing I'd needed before everything changed. All because I'd been desperate enough to sit too long in a gas station parking lot, and kind enough to share a picnic table with a lonely old man. Lily was full of chatter when I picked her up, excited about a science project and a new friend she'd made. For the first time in weeks, I could really listen, not distracted by the weight of empty pockets and emptier prospects. Her voice filled the car like music. We stopped for ice cream on the way home, a small celebration she didn't know the reason for. She got rainbow sherbet, and I didn't even worry about the cost. That night, after Lily was asleep, I sat at our tiny kitchen table and wrote Earl a thank you note on the only nice stationery I had left. It seemed inadequate for everything he'd done, but I needed to try. As I sealed the envelope, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Amy, Earl's granddaughter. He gave me your number, hope that's okay. Just wanted to say thank you for today. He called me tonight, sounded happier than he has in months. You helped him more than you know. P.S. Good luck at the interview tomorrow. Ruth is wonderful. You'll love her. I set the phone down and cried, not the desperate tears of this morning, but the kind that come with relief and gratitude, and the overwhelming realization that kindness still exists in the world. They tasted different than desperate tears, less salt, more release. The interview with Ruth went better than I could have hoped. She was a warm, no-nonsense woman in her 60s who seemed more interested in whether I could handle difficult people with grace than in my employment gap. Earl says you're good people, she said simply, adjusting her glasses to look at me more closely. That's enough for me. When can you start? 2 weeks later, I was settling into my new job, Lily had her school supplies, and our kitchen table regularly featured vegetables from Earl's garden. He'd stop by the dental office sometimes, always with produce or flowers, always with a story about Margaret. The smell of his tomatoes would fill the waiting room, making everyone smile. But the real change was in me. That Tuesday morning at the gas station, I'd thought I was at my lowest point. What I'd actually been was in exactly the right place at exactly the right time to meet exactly the right person. Earl hadn't just filled my gas tank. He'd reminded me that sometimes angels look like old farmers with meatloaf sandwiches and too much potato salad. A month after that first meeting, I found myself back at the same gas station, this time with a full tank and money in my wallet. The same elm tree, the same picnic table, the same sounds of the highway and the gas pumps. But I was different. I noticed a young woman sitting in her car, staring at her phone with that particular stillness of someone trying not to cry. The same stillness I'd had that day. Before I could second-guess myself, I knocked on her window. As she rolled it down, I caught a glimpse of my own reflection in the glass. The same wary eyes I'd seen staring back at Earl not so long ago. "Hi," I said when she rolled it down. "This might sound strange, but are you okay? I was sitting in this same spot not too long ago, having a really hard day, and someone helped me. Just wanted to pay it forward." She burst into tears then, and I found myself sitting with her as she talked about a sick child, medical bills, an expired insurance card. I couldn't solve all her problems, but I could buy her gas, share the lunch I'd packed, meatloaf sandwich, of course, I'd gotten Earl's recipe, and give her Ruth's number. They were looking for another part-time receptionist. As I drove away, I thought about Earl's words that day. Sometimes the universe sends us what we need in the strangest packages. Maybe we're all just packages waiting to be delivered to someone who needs what we're carrying, whether that's a sandwich, a job lead, or just the reminder that kindness still exists in gas station parking lots and everywhere in between. These days, I keep extra granola bars and water bottles in my car, just in case. I've learned to recognize the look, that particular brand of quiet desperation that parks too long in public places. Sometimes people just need directions. Sometimes they need a sandwich. Sometimes they need someone to see them, really see them, and say, "I've been there too." Earl and I have lunch every Tuesday now. Same gas station, same picnic table, same sweet tea in mason jars clinking with ice. He brings the meatloaf sandwiches. I bring stories from the dental office and updates about the people we've helped. The network grows, one sandwich at a time, one tank of gas at a time, one act of kindness creating ripples we'll never fully see. Last week, a woman came into the dental office wearing a uniform from the local hospital. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her until she smiled and said, "You probably don't remember me, but you helped me at a gas station 2 months ago. I got the job at the urgent care center, and my daughter's treatments are going well. I just wanted to say thank you." After she left, Ruth found me crying in the supply closet. Happy tears this time. "Earl effect," she said knowingly, handing me a tissue. "He's been doing this for years, helping one person who helps another who helps another. Margaret would be so proud." That evening, I found Earl at the gas station early, setting up for our weekly lunch. The sun caught the silver in his hair, making him look almost ethereal. "Heard you had a visitor today," he said, eyes twinkling. "The circle keeps growing." "How do you do it?" I asked. "How do you know who to help?" Earl arranged the sandwiches on the picnic table, taking his time, the wax paper crinkling under his careful hands. "Margaret used to say that everyone's fighting some kind of battle. You can see it if you look, in how they hold their shoulders, how they count their change, how they sit just a little too long in parking lots." He smiled at me. "The trick isn't knowing who to help. It's being ready when the opportunity shows up." As we ate our sandwiches and watched people come and go from the gas station, I realized that Tuesday at the picnic table had become my favorite day of the week. Not because of the food, though Earl's meatloaf remained unmatched, but because of the reminder that one person really can make a difference, one sandwich at a time. That night, going through Lily's backpack, I found a school assignment titled My Hero. She'd written about the stranger who helped Mommy when our car was hungry, her words for empty, and how Mommy now helps other people whose cars are hungry too. At the bottom, she'd drawn a picture of the gas station with hearts floating above it. I tucked the paper carefully into my memory box, right next to the first pay stub from Ruth's office, and the photo Earl had given me of him and Margaret at their 40th anniversary. These were my treasures now. Proof that kindness is a currency that multiplies when spent, that rock bottom can be a launching pad, and that sometimes the stranger who changes your day becomes the friend who changes your life. The 73 cents still sits in my cup holder. They haven't turned into miracles, not in the way I expected. But maybe they already did. I keep them there as a reminder of that Tuesday morning when everything felt impossible, when a stranger with a meatloaf sandwich taught me that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they have pickup trucks and garden vegetables, and the simple wisdom to know that we all need somebody to see us, feed us, and remind us that better days aren't just coming. Sometimes they arrive disguised as ordinary Tuesdays, wrapped in wax paper, smelling faintly of fresh-baked bread and Earl's garden tomatoes, served with a side of potato salad and infinite grace.